back to Realistically Random. Okay, so ASAP Rocky's trial has started, and the first day it was jury selection and things, things of that matter. But I think it was basically jury selection, and that was Thursday, and then the trial started Friday. Opening statements were very long. The defense opening statement was very, very long, and while the defense was giving an opening statement, the prosecution um, was objected a lot of times. It was very interesting because I haven't really seen it. I know in the YSL trial, which was the most recent trial that I watched, there was one objection during the opening statement, and um, Brian still actually asked for a mistrial. So that was interesting. But anyways, yeah, the defense opening statement was very, very, very long. And when they finally got it started, after the opening statements and stuff like that, the first witness was surprise, surprise. If anybody watches Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Erica Jane, she had a couple of years ago, a couple of seasons ago, I want to say maybe 2 seasons ago, she talked about her son, and he was a police officer, and how she was worried about him, and she's always worried about the safety. Like any mother that would worry about their child that was a police officer or anything. Like if you're a mother, you're going to worry about your child, but especially if they have jobs that put them at risk. So she did mention that her son was a police officer, and he was the responding officer for this incident with ASAP Rocky. So that was very interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting. Let's get into it. Okay. The rapper who turned down a plea deal faces 2 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm over a November 2021 altercation. ASAP Rocky's assault trial kicked off with opening statements. Rocky, whose real name is Raheem Mayers, is being accused of firing a semi-automatic handgun at Raleigh in November 2021. Rocky 36 previously turned down a plea deal from prosecutors on Tuesday, January 21st, opting for a jury trial instead of pleading guilty to one of the 2 felony charges for assault with a semi-automatic firearm. He faces up to 24 years in prison if found guilty. The deal that Rocky, who shares 2 sons, RZA 2 and Riot Rose, 17 months with Rihanna, turned down would have had him serving 180 days in jail and receiving a 7-year suspended sentence with 3 years on probation. In an opening statement at Rocky's trial, Deputy District Attorney Paul B. Pozamiak recounted the events leading up to the altercation involving Relly, real name Terrell Ephraim, claiming Relly believed that he would show up that night to argue and it would repair his relationship with Rocky. This is not a complicated case, Pozamiak said. Defense will turn in an alternative explanation to what happened that night. We ask that you do not leave your common sense at the door.
The first video that I'm going to show you was captured on November 6th of 2021 at around 10:10 p.m. just outside of a parking garage entrance, mid-block, so on Argyle, in the middle of Argyle, between Hollywood Boulevard and Selma. The second video that I'm going to show you was captured 7 minutes later, so at 10:17. It was, if we're being generous, 2 blocks, maybe 1 city block away from the first location, down Argyle, around Selma, at a small intersection called Selma and Vista Del Mar. Now I'm going to move to the second location, that at Vista Del Mar and Selma, and I'm going to pre-warn you, it's a little small, it's at a distance, so you're going to want to focus your attention at the top left-hand corner. This case takes place in the heart of Hollywood. Now, the actual shooting in this case takes place on a much smaller street, on Selma and Vista Del Mar. But this is the area around where that shooting took place. The shooting, as you've seen, occurred just outside of a parking lot on that corner of Vista Del Mar and Selma. Saturday, November 6, 2021, at about 10 p.m. in Hollywood. This is a time that Hollywood is busy.
Hi, I live in the apartment on the corner of Argyle and Selma in Hollywood, and there's just been a shooting.
So at 10:18 p.m., LAPD receives this call.
Did you see anything or you just heard it?
Yes. No, we watched it.
Okay, what did you see?
There were 4 men, and they were kind of fighting as they were walking along Argyle, and then they turned left onto Selma. We heard yelling and they started running, and they turned left into the back lot apartments for El Centro Apartments.
Now, the 4 men that you see on that screen will be the 4 men that we'll talk about in a minute. They were the 4 that were at that location.
And right was the guy in the black sweatshirt pulled out a gun.
Okay.
And he shot, and I think the guy who shot was blue.
Now, the evidence in this case will be that the man in the black sweatshirt was the defendant, Rakeem Myers. That evidence will be uncontradicted. As you have heard throughout jury selection, Mr. Myers is an entertainer, and he goes by the stage name A$AP Rocky. You will hear other nicknames that he is referred to in the evidence in this case, including Flacco and Luigi. At the time of this crime, Mr. Myers was 33 years old. He has his own company that I believe is referred to as AWGE, A-W-G-E, that you will hear referred to in the testimony in this case. And as we've talked about, the significant other is Rihanna. The victim in this case is a man by the name of Terrell Efron. And Mr. Efron, you will hear, was also a member of the A$AP Collective, and he went by the nickname A$AP Relly. Mr. Efron was also 33 years old at the time of this crime. And what you will hear from Mr. Efron is that he was friends with Mr. Myers well before this case and well before even Mr. Myers was a famous individual. That essentially, I believe they met in high school and grew up together. He has known Mr. Myers 18 or 19 years at the time that this shooting happens. And you will also hear that he, too, at the time was working in the music industry, and he had his own company called Shut Eye Entertainment. Now, I mentioned it already, but to put a finer point on it, the group that both of these men were members of is called A$AP. You will hear that throughout their relationship, there was tension between the two of them. And that tension was essentially building up to the night of November 6, 2021. You will not hear all the reasons why there was tension between the two of them, but we will get to the point the day before this shooting, November 5th, 2021, when that tension kind of comes to a head. What happens on that day, Mr. Efron will tell you, is that he is in a car with that last member of the A$AP group that I talked about, A$AP Bari. The two of them are driving when A$AP Bari receives a phone call from Mr. Myers. And A$AP Bari takes that call on speakerphone. So Mr. Efron, who's in the car, can hear both sides of the conversation. He can hear Mr. Myers, and he can also hear A$AP Bari. And in the course of that call, Mr. Efron, the victim, heard the defendant saying these rude and aggressive things about him. Mr. Myers at the time does not know that Mr. Efron is in the car with the victim. This leads to the next day, November 6th, 2021. You'll hear that Mr. Efron was in Los Angeles working with one of the artists that he managed. He was asleep around 9:00 p.m. when he started receiving a series of urgent messages from not only from Mr. Mayers, but from the two other men that were with him, Asaph Ills and Asaph Twelve. And you'll hear that he received a number of calls kind of back to back to back from the three of them. Now, he didn't answer those calls because he was sleeping, but when he ultimately woke up, he saw that he had a number of missed calls. He also received text messages from Mr. Mayers that were aggressive, seeking a confrontation with him, asking him where he was. Mr. Mayers is on the left side of this conversation. Where are you at? Let's get to it. Stop ducking my calls. The messages that the victim's receiving are instantly aggressive towards him. So you will hear from Mr. Efron that he called the defendant. He was groggy because he had just woken up. They had a conversation and they agreed to meet outside of the W Hotel in Hollywood. Mr. Efron will tell you that as he went to that meeting, he was of the frame of mind that he and Mr. Mayers were going to have a confrontation. That he believed they would argue, and that ultimately this would lead to kind of repairing their relationship. So they would each be able to speak their piece and essentially fight like brothers do, and that it would ultimately bring them closer together. They would repair sort of the issues that they each had with each other. So that's how Mr. Efron is going into this meeting. Now, let's talk about the location where they meet, this location just outside of the W Hotel. You're going to see this map throughout this case. So I want to take some time to walk through it with you so you understand the various features that are depicted here. So it starts at that mid-block location on Argyle, continues down to Selma, and then up Vista Del Mar, around that corner, all the way to El Centro, and then he made a left turn on El Centro and went above, off the map. The numbers in the red boxes that you see here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are the 4 different locations where the police were ultimately able to recover surveillance video from. There are 4 different locations. Attached to each one of those locations, you'll see the green triangle and the green, and with a green arrow in the middle. And what that represents is very roughly, this is not meant to be, exact, but very roughly the direction that a camera attached to that building was facing. The first location I want to focus on is that where the initial confrontation happens. This location is the entrance and exit of a parking structure. There are cameras that are facing the sidewalk. Those are the first view that we saw. And these cameras capture the initial encounter between the victim, Mr. Efron, who you see there, and the defendant, Mr. Mayers. And you can see that Ills is the first one to intervene to try to separate the two of them. And then at the very bottom of the screen, you see 12E putting his hand to try to also intervene and help separate them. The second person who you see, who is instantly confrontational with Mr. Efron, is the defendant, Mr. Mayers. Mr. Efron will tell you that during the period of time that they are off screen is when the defendant first produces that semi-automatic pistol from his waistband. He pulls it out of his waistband and he's holding it to Mr. Efron. Mr. Efron will tell you that the defendant pointed the gun at his chest and was essentially trying to point the gun around Ills, who was between them. that at the time that he was pointing the gun at Mr. Efron, he was also threatening Mr. Efron. I'm gonna kill you. He knows so much so that he'll tell you he looked at the defendant and said, if you brought a gun, you should shoot it. You will hear that that gun that he's holding is a semi-automatic pistol, or has features that are consistent with a semi-automatic pistol. Right now, as it's paused on the screen, you can see that he's holding that gun behind his back. But you will also see the gun come forward in front of his body before he ultimately tucks it back into his waistband. I told you that Mr. Efron will tell you when he first went there, he believed that this was meant to be a confrontation so that they could strengthen their relationship. But having just had a gun pointed at him and seeing another friend putting away a pocket knife, that his mindset changed, and he understood these men never came here to try to make peace with him, that it was always meant to be a confrontation. Mr. Efron followed behind him and was yelling and screaming at him, even though he knew the defendant had a gun. Because although Mr. Efron believed this is going to damage our relationship, he still never believed that the defendant would actually shoot at him. So he walks down Argyle towards Selma and follows behind the three other men. When they get to Selma, they all turn left and they walk towards Vista Del Mar. And they end up at that location we talked about, that corner of Selma and Vista Del Mar. And as Mr. Mayers stepped off the curb, he walked into frame of the camera at location number 2 that's pointing towards Selma. What location number 3 captures is audio. And it captures the sound of the gun being fired twice. Okay. Now, what you see as the video plays is the various cameras on location number 2 switching between 3 different cameras that are mounted to that building. What's important about that, towards the end of the video, you'll see as Mr. Mayers is running away from the location, running down Vista Del Mar towards El Centro, he trips a floodlight that's motion activated. And when you watch the video closely, that floodlight is captured by both locations. So location number 2 and location number 3, those cameras each capture that floodlight turning on. And when you watch the videos together, you can see that moment in time when the lights flash on, line up. And that's how you know the sound correlates with the video that you're seeing playing at the same time from a different location. Now, I told you, we all know the video from location number 2 is from a distance. If you zoom in on the area where this incident happened, and we will play a zoomed in version of this video, what you see is a very pixelated image. But what even that captures still are the colors the individuals are wearing, which is how you can distinguish who is who on the video. You'll see Mr. Efron on the far left. Ills is just next to him. 12E, who's wearing the red jacket, is just next to Ills. And then the defendant, who's wearing all black, is at the bottom of the screen. This does not have any audio. Now, as we play the zoomed in version, you'll also see that Mr. Efron is struggling with ills. And what Mr. Efron will tell you is that immediately as the defendant turned and pointed the gun at him, he jumped behind Ills, essentially to put Ills between him and the defendant. And you'll see on the video the defendant lunging one way and then the other way around Ills, trying to get at the victim, who is holding Ills in front of him. Now, despite how dangerous this is, having a semi-automatic pistol pointed at you and discharged twice, you will hear that Mr. Efron was not seriously injured by this shooting. He has these injuries to the middle knuckle of one of his hands. Mr. Efron will tell you that at the time the shooting was happening, he immediately felt a burning sensation to his hand, which led him to believe that these were graze wounds from one of the bullets that was shot at him. Perhaps they were not. Whether or not the victim in this case was actually shot or injured by this will not be something that you have to decide at the end of the case. And you'll see this video is far more clear. And you'll see features of their clothing that you can match up to the clothing from the other videos that we've already watched. For instance, I mean, you can see just from Mr. Mayer's facial features that he's the one wearing all black. You can see from his facial features compared to the video from the parking structure. And then, as I said, the various features of his clothing, the rhinestones on the hood of his sweatshirt in both videos, and the design, the rhinestone design on the chest of his sweatshirt at both videos. And taking all the videos in their totality and comparing them is how you'll be able to decide on the video who is who. You will also hear from Mr. Efron that approximately an hour, and he's not precise on the exact time, but approximately an hour after the shooting, he himself returned to the location. Now, at this time, the police have already responded and left. Mr. Efron will tell you that he and his girlfriend went there specifically to look for evidence that this had happened, evidence of this shooting. And Mr. Efron will tell you, because he knew exactly where the shooting happened, that he was able to locate 2 fired cartridge cases. This is actually a photograph that Mr. Efron himself took of one of the fired cartridge cases that he found. Mr. Efron, you'll hear, went to the police 2 days later, walked into the Hollywood police station to report this crime happening. He brought the 2 fired cartridge cases with him, and he gave them to the police. You will hear that the 2 cartridge cases that he brought in were 9mm Luger caliber cartridge cases. However, you will also hear from Mr. Efron that immediately after the shooting, about an hour and a half later, he started text messaging the defendant. And he text messaged the defendant, "You try killing me." That was the first message he sent to him. And you'll hear that Mr. Mayer's response was to deny that anything happened. The defendant, in abbreviation, says, "What the fuck is he talking about? Why are you telling people I shot at you?" Denying that any shooting has even happened. Mr. Efron confronts him again. "You set me up to try to take me from my daughter." And the defendant responds, "I tried to do what? I know you hate me, I hate you too." The defendant responds again, "Stop making shit up." Again, denying any confrontation took place. certainly any shooting. We've already told you in jury selection, and you will hear evidence, that after this shooting, Mr. Efron sought money from Mr. Mayers. In fact, right, hours after the shootings, this is the next day, November 7th, in the early morning hours, 3:40 a.m., you'll hear that Mr. Efron sent a message to one of his friends saying that he wants money. And identifying the reason why he wants that money is because Mr. Mayers shot at him. You will also hear that based upon these two incidents, the parking lot and the shooting on the corner, that Mr. Efron filed a civil lawsuit against Mr. Mayers. At the end of this case, you will not be asked to award Mr. Efron any money. So that consideration will not be a part of your what you're asked to determine. Moving forward in time, you'll hear from LAPD detectives that Mr. Mayers' home was searched on April 20th of 2022, and that during that search, LAPD detective recovered a magazine for a semi-automatic pistol that was 9mm caliber, and that it was loaded with 6 unfired 9mm Luger rounds of live ammunition. You will hear that these items were found in Mr. Mayers' bedroom closet. You will also hear that there was no handgun that was 9mm in Mr. Mayers' home that was for that magazine. So you have a 9mm magazine, but no handgun to go with it.
Rocky's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, however, claimed that Relly was a fraud, leveraging a fabricated story to extract money from Rocky. Tacopina also claimed that a gun Rocky could be seen holding in surveillance footage shown to the jury on January 24th was nothing more than a prop gun, which he said the rapper had on him to scare off potential attackers as advertised by security. For Relly, it was never about justice. It's about a man seeking a profit from a fabricated narrative, Tacopina said. Rocky has nothing to hide.
Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about one man's jealousy, lies, and greed. And that man is not Rocky. That man's Terrell Efron, or you've heard the name Relly. He is the source of all the evidence in this case, all of it. That the prosecution is going to rely on, he's the source of all the evidence. The 2 assaults you're going to hear about in this case were both committed by this Relly. Both. All the evidence comes through his mouth. Every single piece of evidence for you to decide these charges comes through his mouth. This case rises or falls on his credibility. The videos you saw, without his testimony, proves absolutely nothing. You need to believe his testimony and his version of events from the video for these charges to be proven. But just on facts. And to abide by the basic tenets of our Constitution, proof beyond a reasonable doubt and a presumption of innocence. And they're not mere technicalities, instead they're the backbone of this country. A person is presumed innocent, the Judge Strait told you. And it means he is in fact innocent until and unless the prosecution proves otherwise beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt, the judge will give you the law later at the end of the case. But it's a doubt that will cause you to hesitate in a matter of importance in your own life. I submit to you the decision you make in this case, at the end, will be the most important decision in the life of Rocky Mayers and his family. And I'm confident that if you apply the standard and hold the prosecution to the burden of proving each and every element of both counts, beyond that doubt, it's a reasonable doubt, this will work out. And that's why the 16 will show you that Rocky was a self-made man, risen from the most humble beginnings to extraordinary successes through work, dedication, and artistic
Your Honor,
brilliance.
this is argument is also irrelevant.
Overruled. What is said in opening statement is not evidence. What is evidence is what can be proven. Sometimes things are said in opening statement that cannot be proven and are not proven. Sometimes they are. That's what this case will be about.
Remember my promises. He was raised in poverty.
Your Honor,
You'll hear that
same, Your Honor, the same objection.
Stop. Overruled.
You hear about his upbringing, his mother and his siblings, and how he overcame with hard work, with dedication, and with talent. He raised a beautiful family, as the district attorney put the picture, his significant other.
Your Honor,
Sustain. You got to get to the facts of the case.
You're going to hear the stark contrast in two individuals, Rocky on one side, Pharrell Efron on the other side, known as Relly. He represents a very different narrative. The evidence will show you that this Relly presents himself to the world as a wealthy, successful man, source lighted, he's a reporting artist, businessman. He flaunts a very lavish lifestyle on social media. He poses with luxury goods.
Your Honor, the same objection. None of this is evidence.
Evidence will show you this. None of this is evidence yet. There's no evidence on both sides. Posting pictures of himself with large sums of cash and whatnot. It's fraud. He is all about a money grab. The truth is far different. And you're going to see this extravagant lifestyle that this really flaunts is nothing more than a fraud, built on not on success and hard work, but upon criminal activity. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is all about money. I've said it once, twice, I'll say it a few more times. It is because Rocky would not agree to be a victim of another one of his crimes. That's why we're here. Because Rocky said, here's some money. We're not here. He doesn't go to the police. And even after he went to the police, if Rocky gave him money, we're not here. From Relly's own testimony, that was the catalyst for this incident. His resentment, from his own testimony, his resentment was the catalyst for this incident. And his animosity towards Rocky. The evidence will show you that Relly met Rocky when he was in high school in Harlem. They were both part of that creative and artistic conglomerate called ASAP, which now you know means always strive and prosper. Over the years, Rocky achieved more and more success in the entertainment industry at first. He did maintain a friendship with Relly, unfortunately for him. He even sought to help Relly through professional collaboration. But that wasn't enough for Relly, clearly. You'll see the kind of person Relly is in this courtroom. You're going to see it. He was jealous and angry, and as Rocky rejected some of the projects he presented him, Relly's resentment grew deeper and darker. So embittered by the success achieved by Rocky, someone he once considered peer, Relly embarked on a dangerous course of action. And in November 2021, Relly's resentment towards him reached the fever pitch. After tragedy had struck another member of this ASAP group, an individual named ASAP Josh had untimely death. He passed away. Evidence will show you that Rocky stepped up, spoke to the parents and the mom, ASAP Josh, and offered to cover the cost for the funeral, bring the body back to New York, and pay for the funeral. But Relly, still blinded by resentment, believed otherwise. He thought for some reason Rocky didn't agree to pay, or had agreed to pay, but then didn't actually pay. And he was furious. He went as far as to threaten physical violence against him. because he thought he didn't pay for the funeral or for the expense of flying the body back. He was wrong, because he did pay. But he went as far as to threaten physical violence. And you're going to see that for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. On October 16th, a few weeks before this incident that you're all here to hear about, Willie told his friend that Rocky was a piece of shit and declared, "I'm going to beat this nigga up." Now, it's funny, they showed you a lot of text messages. I didn't see that one. Did not see that one. That's the catalyst. That's weeks before this incident, when he came in hot on November 6, 2021 on Argyle. And he reached out first. It was Willie who made the first physical contact. You can see in a second. The DA said that Rocky was the aggressor. There's a video there. There was no evidence that a gun was pressed against his stomach, directed at his chest, or pointed at his head. There's none. This didn't happen. The video that you saw, the first video, shows Rocky holding an object what appears to be a gun, and really seized on that, and manufactured his extortion claim. And we'll get to the extortion in a bit. And remember, this is a promise from me. We'll see extortion. And if I'm not good on my promise, you'll hold it against me. I want you to. The evidence will make clear that the object really alleged was a firearm was absolutely nothing more than a prop gun. The DA ended his opening statement saying, 12B will tell you that. He'll testify on behalf of Rocky and tell you that. Not just 12B, multiple witnesses will tell you that. Not just 12B. Multiple witnesses will tell you that that was a prop gun. You'll learn that that was a prop gun, also called a starter gun, a blank gun, but it's a type of fake gun. It's used in prop movies and music videos. It's also used to scare off attackers by looking and sounding like a real gun, without actually firing a live round. The evidence will show you that Rocky, obviously, I think you all know by now, is a high-profile person in the public spotlight, and he was a target. The evidence will show, in fact, that he was the victim of prior violence, which caused him to have to carry this. Victim of home invasions, victim of a stalker at that time, in November of 2021, victim of a slashing on his face, which he still carries with him today. It's,
Your Honor, there's been no
the first person to raise a hand to anyone is Remy. You're going to see when he comes up, initially, that's him, you all agree, in those black pants coming up. First person in the video. You'll see he goes with his left hand. He raises his hand first. Play that one snippet, Eleanor, please. Boom. Do it again. Boom. He comes up with that left hand before Rocky raises his right hand. And how do you know that? Play the next clip, please. He has his hand around Rocky's neck or shoulder, and Rocky's right hand then finally comes up. Boom. This guy has his hands around Rocky's neck or shoulder before Rocky's right hand comes up. Boom. And then you've heard and you saw in the video, they going backwards. Relly, again, who's much bigger, you can see that from there, said to the police, yeah, I pulled him back. I pulled him back. They told you, well, Rocky pushed him back. That's not what Relly said. Defies sort of the laws of physics. And you're going to see that Relly wasn't hiding behind Ills or under Ills. In fact, in the video, if you look carefully, and we'll show you, you'll see that Relly's on top of Ills as they're on the floor, on top of him, punching. And even after Rocky left the scene, that's simple. Even after Rocky left the scene and ran, the evidence will show you that Relly continued to attack Ills. A witness will walk you through that. It's not on that sequence surveillance video. They cut out those last 3-4 seconds. That's a problem.
There's Rocky, there's 12B. Then Ills comes and he's following. You see him go right after Ills, really. And that's when Rocky fires the warning shots. And there's Ills on top, really on top of Ills, punching him. That's Ills going down to the ground. Rocky's gone. 12B's about to be gone. And watch. There goes Relly back after Ills. And then he goes away after he hits him again. He came back to the area an hour later with his girlfriend, Lydia Parker. And that while they were there, he quickly found 2 shell casings. And Rocky fired right there. He picked them up and he found them. And then he videotaped them. An hour later. You will see that story fall apart so hard. Why? Because the evidence will show you that well before Relly returned to the area, 7 police officers, like a SWAT, 7 police officers arrived at that same spot. They responded to the scene and carefully searched every inch of that area. I could not believe what I heard on the opening statement. Oh, the police didn't know where to look. Police searched the exact same spot where Relly claims he picked up the bullets. Not body cam from the police where they were searching. And there's a surveillance video that you see here that captured Relly coming back an hour later. Exact same spot. This is where the alleged tussling was with Relly and Ills. Rocky's here, 12B's here. Here's the corner they came around. So this is where the shots. Yeah. Very high tech, Your Honor. This is where the shots were.
Like, easy on the screen.
This is where the shots were discharged according to Relly, right here. Okay, right here. Look at where they're searching. This is where Relly, since he comes back an hour later and picks it up, and here's a landmark. Look, this is the corner that they all came around, right here, and this is where it all started. And here, there's that opening right here. See this big orange, red, whatever this thing is here? Look at the picture below. Okay. That thing there is that thing here. That opening here, this is a big orange thing. I mean, you can't really see this well here. You'll be able to take these with you later. This is that orange thing. Go back up again, guys, down to the other one. This is that orange thing. Directly across a few feet there is where they're searching. Go down. I repeat that. One of the police officers on the scene said, there's no evidence of a gun being fired. But still, they're going to ask you to believe Relly, who miraculously found them in the dark an hour later after 7 trained officers with searchlights in the same exact spot couldn't find them. So what did Relly first do with the videos he made of the shell casings? Did he go to the police? No, he didn't contact the police. Instead, he sent them to Rocky and Rocky's manager and said, I'm going to be rich. That was his first thought. I'm going to be rich. I mean, here's someone who basically claims he was shot. That was the initial story, shot. He miraculously recovered the evidence from the crime scene that the police couldn't find. And he'd go to the police. His first thought was, I'm going to be rich. And you'll learn shortly after sending those messages to Rocky and his business manager, you're going to learn that Relly sent another message to his business partner, to Relly's business partner, saying, I want to get this nigga's money. That's all that was on his mind. Not his near-death experience. Oh my God, how did he even survive that scrape on his knuckles? Not running to the police to arrest the culprit. No. Texting everyone, I'm gonna get rich, I'm gonna get his money. That's all he cared about. Showed you a bunch of texts between Relly and Rocky that night. Didn't show you that text. Rocky saying, go to the police. Yeah, because someone who really shoots someone and is guilty says, yeah, go to the police. After he tried on his own to get the money, let me go get a civil lawyer to try and get money out of Rocky. And you'll hear that because the civil lawyer would only take his case if he went to the police. Relly then went to the police 2 days later. Posed proof of him being shot, the knuckle scrapes, the superficial knuckle scrapes across his knuckles, which are consistent with him doing what you see in the video, attacking somebody, attacking pills. That did not look well. But attacking somebody and punching and scraping the knuckle on the ground. What kind of bullet was that? Hits one knuckle, bounces down, hits another knuckle, bounces down again. I mean, it's ridiculous that he said that. He got shot. That was his first story. Now you hear that back off, way off that thing now. He waited all the way from California to New York to go to a hospital many days later after getting a civil lawyer and being told by the detective in this case, really, you should go to the hospital, not to make sure you're not going to die, not to make sure you don't lose use of your hand, not to make sure your knuckles heal. The detective said, you should go to the hospital for this case. You hear that the police, despite examining them for fingerprints, didn't find Rockies on them. Those bullets, metal, capture prints. So if someone loads a bullet into a gun, their prints are going to be on that. Not Rockies. Now, in the end, you'll see that all the objective evidence in this case relied on by the prosecution to support a shooting rises and falls, I mean falls, on the word and credibility of Relly, who is a proven criminal and perjurer. Those shell casings he claims to have found, the superficial scrapes he claims to gunshot wound. The video himself that he even claims he can't make out clearly. We have to rely on his rendition of it only. Because without his rendition, you get nothing from any of this. The second for the altercation around the corner. 2 counts. To prove those 2 counts, they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt 2 things. 1, Rocky possessed a real gun.
No, this sounds like.
Okay. The judge believed the law of an extortion in this case and perjury to try and cover it up. Hard evidence of an extortion in this case, the evidence will show you, and perjury to try to cover it up. The evidence will show you Relly's understanding in that regard, that if Rocky's found guilty here, he automatically has liability in the civil case and gets money. Lots of
No, that's absolutely improper.
That's
No, the intriguing
Relly's
instruction.
understanding.
Counsel continues to
Stop.
make whatever.
Stop.
objections-
No speaking objections. Stop. Disregard anything about the consequences of whether Mr. Mayers is or is not convicted in this case. The consequences have no bearing on any decision that you have to make, and you're going to be given a jury instruction to that effect.
Thank you.
To hide here. At another point during the hearing, the prosecution said it submitted new evidence the previous night. Relly testified at a previous hearing that he returned to the scene and retrieved two 9mm shell casings, which, according to the prosecution team, a new examination proved exhibited characteristics of a Glock Model 40 and 43. Rocky's lawyer, Tacopina, argued that the evidence changes the complexity of this case and was unfair to him.
And I will stick with sort of the chronological order here. I'm not going to argue case law or anything like that, but aside from the fact that we lost 4 to 5 hours the night before our opening dealing with this, we this morning, after we get an expert report last night that was in the possession of the lead case detective in this case, not some random police officer, Detective Flores is the case detective in this case. I have to believe he understood the importance of that report. He testified at preliminary hearing. After we get that report that says, in conclusion, that the subcompact pistol frames, including but not limited to, which means absolutely nothing. So it could be a universe that we don't even understand of other pistols, and then goes on to list 3 of them here. This morning, we got another 28 pages of backup data on this. Backup lab, I guess, report that normally comes with a conclusion report. We got this morning. And I find it hard to believe that the lead detective in this case didn't bring it to anyone's attention from the district attorney's office until after a jury was impaneled the night before opening statements. I mean, something that they now are saying is such a crucial piece of evidence. We have an issue now with the jury. Obviously, it's a jury panel. It may affect, quite frankly, whether we would have kept or not kept a few jurors, one in particular. Then we assured him yesterday he'd have a fair trial. You're going to have a fair trial. We've made issues regarding the veneer. You know that, Your Honor. I'm not going to rehash that. We're here. We're ready to open today. I don't even know how we're supposed to do this. This should be suppressed without question, because it changes the complexity of the case. At the very least, we have to quash this panel and start again, or strike jurors, reselect. I mean, I think even the district attorney said, okay, well, continuance is appropriate. Mark, we paid the jury. We're ready to go. This is something that, you know, to render fair and effective representation here, as we all assured Mr. Mayor he would have, in the midst of a trial that's already underway, we would need to locate and retain our own expert to conduct a scientific analysis. Their report was 28 pages. It took them, according to them, it took them 1 week to do this. 1 week. And that's their own lab, with their own on-staff experts. And it took them a week. How long is it going to take us? We have to go find somebody first, hope he's available, the trial will be over.
Hearing from you then, it seems like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth with the defenses. Like it's irrelevant. However, it's so prejudicial that it shouldn't be allowed in. It's so inculpatory that it shouldn't be allowed in.
No, I don't think anyone said it's so inculpatory. We don't understand. Saying it's inculpatory is not accurate. I didn't say it's inculpatory, he didn't say it. What he said was there's a balancing test, because it says including but not limited to. All that simply means is, not that it's not inculpatory, not that, we just don't understand what this means. Not limited to means there's a universe of guns that have to be tested now. I don't know what not limited to means. So how many pistols does not limited to include? How many firearms does not limited to include? That's what it means.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe was going off in that courtroom. Yeah, Joe was, Tacopina, he was not happy. He felt that the prosecution was holding on to evidence, and the prosecution said, well, we literally got this last night. But it's just strange, aside from that part, like the fact that Relly returned to the scene, found these shell casings, but when the police, Erica Jane's son, it was like 6 police officers out there, they were searching and they didn't find anything. But when he went back, he did, which is very weird. Okay, but anywho, the trial was pushed back from its original November 2024 date due to a scheduling conflict. The move followed Rocky's January 2024 non-guilty plea after a judge determined that was enough evidence to stand trial. Relly, a former member of Hip Hop Collective ASAP Mob, filed a civil suit for assault, battery, and emotional distress against Rocky on August 10, 2022. The rapper has denied all claims. I wonder what's going on with the civil lawsuit. I wonder if the civil lawsuit has to wait until the criminal case is done. On April 20th, 2022, Rocky was arrested at Los Angeles International and released on bail the same day. Takapina told reporters that following his arraignment last January, Rocky was cool as a cucumber ahead of trial and eager to get the trial over with so he can start enjoying his family. Yeah. Oh gosh. So we shall see. So they said the 28th. Okay. They're going to resume to give the defense more time, and we shall see what happens. They really don't have concrete evidence that the shooting happened. Well, you can see Rocky with a gun. You just don't see it anywhere where he's on camera shooting the gun. That's the thing. He has a gun in his hand. But nowhere do they have any evidence that he shot it at Relly. We shall see what happens because, from my understanding, from the charges, even though he's not on any type of video actually pulling the trigger, from the type of charge that they charged him with, they don't have to prove that piece, which is very weird. They don't have to prove that they don't have to have direct evidence that he shot the gun. Just the fact that he had the gun. You can hear the gunshots in the wind. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And this is literally the first day. So we'll see how long this lasts. I don't want to see Rocky go to jail. I don't. You know, he turned down the plea deal. Let's see what Joe is going to do with this evidence because he says since the person that the ballistics person, like I just read, he feels like that changes the case a little bit. So we shall see. And we'll be right back here to recap. Until next time. See ya.